We could use your help keeping the Omaha History Podcast going. Please consider becoming a patron for as little as $1 a month. Go to patreon.com/Omaha. That's Patreon. It'll help pay the light bill.
Welcome to the North Omaha History Podcast with noted author and historian Adam Fletcher Sassy. Each week, Adam takes you on a guided tour through Omaha's dynamic past.
Did you know that North Omaha has become home to 5 higher education institutions in its history? Well, let's go back to 1863 when the town of Saratoga, now located in North Omaha, went to the Nebraska Territorial Legislature and secured a charter for the first ever University of Nebraska. Well, unfortunately, their efforts amounted to nil, but their legacy didn't. So, interesting stuff. Take it from there, Adam.
You can imagine way back in the dirty, dusty olden days, here's a bunch of town promoters sitting around. They're looking at this old place. You know, Saratoga was founded in 1857, and its early backers, they abandoned town. They jetted. But in 1863, there were enough people sitting around there to say, hey, let's go to this legislature and see if we can get this done. So they went to the legislature. They got permission to start the University of Nebraska. They just never did anything with it. As a kickoff, Steve, you know, that's a great way to begin looking at this thing, because we have a legacy in North Omaha of higher education that starts right then, 1863, before the University of Nebraska in Lincoln. It goes all the way to the day with higher ed facilities continuing to invest in the young people of North Omaha and beyond. With our internationally recognized university, with our local community college that's just doing spectacular, and all kinds of things that happen in between, I think it's a great thing to take a look at. Maybe it all began in earnest, after that 1863 kickoff. Maybe it all began way back at the corner of 24th and California streets. It was right on that corner that in 1878, Mary Creighton donated a lot of money to get Creighton College founded. Creighton College was named after her husband, Ed. And later on, Mary made her big contribution, and Ed's brother, John, made a big contribution. And today they have more than 140 acres along Cumming Street, all right there in North Omaha. 8,000 students study in the College of Arts and Sciences, business, nursing, dentistry, medicine, pharmacy, health professions, law, and professional studies. There's a huge basketball team whose name is thrown around in national circles all of the time because the power of the Creighton Blue Jays to change the entire national basketball scene with their dominance. And there's so much more. There's a history of football and their ROTC that's existed. Just all of the things that have happened in Creighton. Right there in North Omaha, right there accessible to the neighborhood for most of the time. And all the wonderful people who have come and gone through there, including Ernie Chambers, who began his law career there. Brenda Council, lots of folks have gone through Creighton from the North Omaha neighborhood. And, you know, that really is the cornerstone. It's the old legacy of higher ed in North Omaha. One of the other early schools doesn't exist anymore. But from the 1890s through the 1940s and 50s, the Omaha Presbyterian Theological Seminary was a higher education institution that was located right along Florence Boulevard. This higher ed facility, the seminary, hosted Presbyterian ministers in training who went from Nebraska out to the Dakotas, to Kansas, to Iowa and beyond to help Presbyterianism spread all around the Midwest. They had dozens of candidates go through the college between 1891 and 1902. But then when they opened up their big new facility in the Coons Place neighborhood, it was on a 5-acre campus right at Florence Boulevard and Spencer Streets. They had 100 rooms in the building. And those rooms included classrooms. There was a big auditorium and a library and a dormitory. It was a grand facility. Now, what the Presbyterians ended up realizing is that they couldn't keep it going. There are lots of Presbyterian seminaries in the state still today, but at that point, they just couldn't afford one in Omaha specifically. So in 1942, they shut down the facility permanently. The building actually became an apartment building and then burnt down later on. And today the Sunshine Apartments condominiums are located right next door to where the old seminary used to be. There is a foundation, as a side note, there is a foundation that carries on the legacy of the Omaha Presbyterian Theological Seminary, and they keep going. But they are another one of those early higher education landmarks in North Omaha. You know, another one worth mentioning happened right after that seminary closed because they used the same building. It was Grace University that ended up becoming so popular there in South Omaha, just south of downtown in the old Brownell Hall School right on 10th Street. They actually got started in North Omaha at the old Omaha Presbyterian Theological Seminary on Florence Boulevard. So they were there for just a couple of months in 1942 and ended up moving really quick. But it's worth noting that they actually started right there in North Omaha. You know, one of the biggest impacts that North Omaha's educational history had in all of Omaha was the reality that in 1907, a group of professors from the Presbyterian Theological Seminary got together and said, you know, Omaha should have a non-secular university, have a secular university, one that's not religiously affiliated. And they started this city-named college called Omaha University, the University of Omaha. It was founded right in North Omaha. Now, they moved away from where the theological seminary was to 24th and Pratt. And right there on that corner, they bought the old mansion that used to belong to John Reddick, and they turned it into the first Omaha University right there in 1908, and the university rolled on from there. They built a new gymnasium called Jacobs Gymnasium. They built a big hall with libraries and classrooms and cafeteria and other facilities called the Reddick Hall. They tore down the old mansion, sent it up to Minnesota, and they ended up taking over an old school building at 24th and Ames that was called the Saratoga Science Hall. Wow. Steve, in the next 20 years, they graduated hundreds and hundreds of students. Lots of people came through. It was coeducational. It was secular. They had almost a half dozen buildings spread between Coons Place, Saratoga, and all these other places in between. They owned old houses that were university professor offices. They had classes downtown. They were doing all kinds of things and really rolling on with it. More than 2,000 students there graduated from there until 1937. You know, it's the Great Depression, and in the middle of that year, the Federal Civilian Conservation Corps program, part of the Works Progress Administration by the federal government, came to Omaha. They had a camp down at Carter Lake, and they ended up going and working with the university to begin building a new municipal university called the University of Omaha. Same name because it was the same institution. They moved everything from North Omaha all the way out to West Dodge Road at about 60th. Well, we know the story. It's still there today. It's growing. It's becoming more and more. But the University of Nebraska at Omaha was started right there in North Omaha in 1907. Very exciting time. You know, they even had plans, just as a side note, Steve, they had plans for a grand campus right there on 24th Street at Pratt. And beautiful layout. They had plans for a dozen buildings. They wanted fountains and walkways and all kinds of fanciness. They ended up building it out somewhere else. But regardless, the dream was started right in North Omaha. And you know, Steve, the last higher ed facility that was born in North Omaha that's worth mentioning because it's still going today so awesomely is Metropolitan Community College, the Fort Omaha campus. It all started way back, it all started way back in the 1870s. When Fort Omaha was born and built up and turned into a beautiful brick facility. And then it became a Navy base and a bunch of other things in between. But in 1976, the U.S. government decommissioned the base. And they said, hey, does anybody want this? A new program had been started in Nebraska, and a new district had been started around Omaha called the Metropolitan Technical and Community College, Metro Tech. And Metro Tech said, hey, we want it. They moved in to protect the facility, to hold their classes there. They actually had professors who lived in the different buildings throughout the campus, and They just turned it into all kinds of classrooms and offices and everything. Today, there are more than 30 historic buildings right there on the Fort Omaha campus, all of them beautifully maintained by Metro, and who, in their commitment, has actually built out the Fort Omaha campus further. They restored the old mule barn and put in new offices in there, including the board of directors office for Metro, and a beautiful boardroom. They restored a bunch of the old buildings, and they've maintained every other one. So it is a spectacular place and continues to serve as a boon to North Omaha, not just for its architectural heritage, not just for its military history, but also for the fact that it's one of the best higher education institutions in all of Nebraska in the Midwest. And it's located right there in North Omaha. I love it. I love the campus today. Beautiful trees surround the whole thing. The parade ground is still intact. It has a big, beautiful gazebo that they just finished building. But the campus is also home to my friends at the Douglas County Historical Society, which I think is a spectacular testament to the historical legacy of Metro Tech and the campus itself, that they host the county's most important historical institution today right there on the campus. So that's a little bit about the long history of higher education in North Omaha. You know, it's also worth mentioning, Steve, that the Duchesne College of the Sacred Heart, they operated right there in North Omaha in the Gifford Park neighborhood from 1908 to 1968. They gave out degrees in all kinds of areas, and it was accredited as a junior college and became a senior college. And it's just a really important place that had hundreds and hundreds of graduates. And that was a higher education institution. As well as that, the Emmanuel Nursing School gave out nursing degrees from 1891 all the way to 1974. And that was right at 34th and Larimore. The Swedish Mission Hospital had a teaching facility too, with nurses earning degrees there. So North Omaha has this amazing legacy of higher education. We need more young people from North Omaha completing that legacy, getting into these colleges and other ones and getting their higher education, and then coming back to North Omaha to build it up, strengthen it, and build out the history further into the future. But if anybody's interested, there are lots of articles on NorthOmahaHistory.com about each of these facilities and much more. I've also linked to the official histories of each one of these institutions' own websites, so you can see that as well as some historical pictures, a general plan for the grand facilities that were supposed to be built by the University of Omaha right there in North Omaha and 24th Street, and so much more is waiting for anybody at NorthOmahaHistory.com. And that's a little bit about higher ed in North Omaha.
Thanks for listening to the North Omaha History Podcast with noted author and historian Adam Fletcher Sasse. Join us next week as Adam takes you on another guided tour through Omaha's dynamic past.